The fire in the center of the pack grounds burned high that night, throwing orange light against the trees. Everyone had gathered to welcome home their alpha king, Kale, who had spent the last 2 years traveling between territories to strengthen alliances. His return was a celebration, and the entire pack had turned out to see him. Lena stood near the back, as she always did. She wore a long-sleeved shirt, despite the warmth of the fire. Her arms crossed over her chest in a habit that had become second nature. She was not important here. She was not strong, not connected, not someone anyone noticed unless they wanted to remind her of that fact. Her cousin Draven noticed her. He had never liked her, not since they were children, not since his mother used to compare him to Lena's late father, and always found her cousin lacking. That old resentment had curdled over the years into something uglier, something Draven expressed in quiet ways that never quite showed on the surface. A shove here, a cruel word there, bruises that Lena learned to hide before anyone asked questions she couldn't safely answer. Tonight, Draven was in a mood. He had been drinking, laughing loudly, with a group of higher-ranked wolves, feeding off their attention. When he spotted Lena trying to slip toward the edge of the gathering, something in him decided she made an easy target for a joke. "Lena," he called out, loud enough that heads turned. "Come say hello to everyone, don't be shy." She froze. There was nothing to do but walk toward him, because refusing would only draw more attention, and more attention was the last thing she wanted. "You're always hiding in those long sleeves," Draven said, reaching out before she could step back. He grabbed her wrist and yanked her arm forward, pushing the fabric up past her elbow. "What? Are you hiding something?" The firelight fell across her arm, illuminating the yellow and purple marks scattered along her skin. A few people gasped. Most just stared, uncertain what to make of it, uncertain if it was their place to say anything. "She's always tripping over things," Draven said, laughing, playing it off as though it were nothing. "Clumsiest wolf in the pack, can't walk 2 steps without hurting herself." Lena pulled her arm back, tugging her sleeve down with shaking hands. Humiliation burned hotter than the fire beside them. She wanted to disappear, to sink into the ground and vanish from every eye now turned toward her. She did not see Kale step through the crowd. She did not know, in that moment, that the king had gone still, his entire body locked with a tension no one had ever seen in him before. He had caught her scent the moment the wind shifted, carrying it toward him from across the clearing. It hit him like nothing he had ever experienced. Every instinct in him recognized it immediately, some ancient part of his mind whispering one word over and over. Mate. He moved through the crowd without realizing he was moving, his eyes finding her before his mind had fully caught up with what was happening. And what he saw in that moment was his mate, arm bared, marked with bruises, standing in front of a wolf who was laughing at her pain. The pack fell silent as Kale reached them. His presence alone commanded that kind of quiet, but there was something different in his expression now, something sharper and more dangerous than the calm authority he usually carried. "Who did this to her?" he said. His voice was low, controlled, but it carried across the clearing like a blade. Draven blinked, confused by the sudden shift in atmosphere. "Alpha? She's just clumsy, that's all. I did not ask what she is," Kale said, cutting him off. "I asked who marked her skin like that." The crowd shifted uneasily. No one had expected the king's return to unfold this way. No one understood yet what had just happened, why their alpha had gone from celebratory to razor-focused in the span of a heartbeat, why his gaze kept returning to Lena, as though he could not look away from her even if he tried. Lena felt the weight of his stare and shrank instinctively, pulling her arm against her body. She did not know this man beyond his title. She had never spoken to him directly in her life. And now his attention, sharp and unblinking, was fixed entirely on her. "It's nothing," she said quietly, the words automatic after years of practice. "I fell. I'm clumsy," like he said. Kale's jaw tightened. He could smell the lie on her, faint but unmistakable, layered beneath fear and old habit. He had spent years learning to read wolves who tried to hide the truth from him, and every instinct told him this young woman had been hiding far more than a few accidental bruises. "Everyone will return to the celebration," Kale said, raising his voice enough for the pack to hear. "I need a moment with my mate." The word landed like a stone dropped into still water. Whispers spread instantly through the crowd, eyes widening, mouths falling open. Draven's face drained of color as understanding crashed over him. The woman he had just mocked in front of the entire pack was the Alpha King's mate. Kale did not wait for the reaction to settle. He gently took Lena's uninjured hand and led her away from the fire, away from the staring crowd, toward the quiet edge of the forest, where the noise of the celebration faded into a low hum behind them. She was trembling, though not entirely from fear. Something about his presence, close now instead of distant, made her feel strange and unsteady, like the ground beneath her had shifted without warning. "I'm not going to hurt you," Kale said, his voice softer now that they were alone. "I only want to understand what happened back there. You don't have to be afraid to tell me the truth." Lena wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the ground. "It's not important. Please, don't make a scene over this. I don't want any more attention." "It became important the moment I recognized you as mine," he said. "And it was already important before that, whether you believe it or not. No one in this pack should walk around covering bruises they're too afraid to explain." His words settled into her chest with a strange, unfamiliar warmth. No one had ever spoken to her like this before, like her pain mattered enough to interrupt a celebration, like her safety was worth more than keeping the peace. Still, the habit of silence ran deep. "Draven has always been like this," she admitted finally, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "Ever since we were children, it got worse these last few months. He says things, does things, and no one questions him because of who his family is." "And you never told anyone?" "Who would believe me? He's respected. I'm no one. It would only make things worse." Kale felt anger rise in his chest, not at her, but at the pack structure that had allowed this to continue, at the culture that valued rank over decency, at himself for being absent long enough that this had been allowed to happen unnoticed. "You are not no one," he said firmly. "You are my mate, and even if you weren't, you deserve to live without fear in your own home. That ends tonight." Lena looked up at him, searching his face for signs of the anger turning into something that might frighten her, some flicker of the temper she had learned to expect from powerful wolves. She found none. Only steady, quiet resolve. They returned to the gathering together, and Kale called for the entire pack to assemble properly, not for celebration now, but for judgment. Word had already spread about what had happened, and the clearing filled quickly, the earlier festive mood replaced by tense anticipation. Draven stood near the front, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool night air. He understood now the weight of what he had done, understood there was no laughing this away. "I have learned something troubling tonight," Kale said, his voice carrying easily across the silent crowd. "My mate has endured months of cruelty from a member of this pack, cruelty that was allowed to continue because those around her valued rank over what was right. That ends now." He turned his gaze to Draven. "You mocked her pain in front of everyone. You laughed while she stood there, ashamed of marks you put on her skin. Explain yourself." Draven's mouth opened and closed several times, before words finally came. "Alpha, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she was your mate. I would never have." "Would you have stopped if she wasn't?" Kale asked. "Or does her suffering only matter to you now because it inconveniences you?" Silence answered him, which was answer enough. "Rank does not grant permission to cause harm," Kale continued, addressing the entire pack now. "Strength is not measured by who you can frighten into silence. From this moment, Draven is stripped of his rank and his place within this pack. He will leave these lands by sunrise and will not return." Gasps rippled through the crowd, but no one objected. The evidence had been plain enough, worn on Lena's own skin for anyone with eyes to see, and the king's judgment carried a weight that silenced any protest before it could form. Draven opened his mouth once more, perhaps to argue, perhaps to beg, but the look on Kale's face closed off any hope of mercy. He turned and walked away from the fire, from the pack that had once respected him, disappearing into the darkness of the trees. The following days brought a change Lena had never expected. Pack members who had once looked past her now offered quiet greetings, small gestures of kindness that felt foreign after so long being invisible. Word had spread of what Draven had done, and of how quickly the king had acted to protect his mate, and with it came a shift in how people treated her, no longer as someone easy to overlook, but as someone worth noticing. Kale, for his part, made no assumptions about what the mate bond entitled him to. He visited her often, always patient, always careful to let her set the pace of their growing closeness. He asked about her days, listened when she spoke, and slowly, gently, showed her through small, consistent actions that he meant what he had said that first night, that her safety and her comfort mattered to him. It took time for Lena to unlearn old habits, to stop expecting cruelty around every corner, to stop bracing herself for disappointment whenever someone showed her kindness. But little by little, the walls she had built over years began to soften. She started wearing short sleeves again, no longer hiding skin that carried no fresh bruises to conceal. She laughed more easily, spoke more freely, and found herself looking forward to the moments when Kale would seek her out just to talk, just to be near her. Months later, standing beside him at a pack gathering much like the one where everything had changed, Lena felt none of the fear that had gripped her that night. The fire crackled warmly in front of her, the pack gathered around in celebration, and this time, when eyes turned toward her, she did not shrink away. She stood tall, secure in her place beside the Alpha King, no longer the girl hiding bruises in the shadows, but the woman he had chosen to stand with him in the light, protected, valued, and finally, truly free.